What is up with the Panther Nation? This is your sports editor, Daniel Stackhouse, and today I'm here with Coach's Corner, and this week I'm joined by wrestling head coach, Andrew Garner. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing very good, man. Let's get straight into this. First, we've kind of already said enough about a lot of the COVID stuff that's been going on, but with wrestling and the kind of sport wrestling is, what has it been like having to navigate the season and play by the rules of this pandemic?
We have the same rules as everybody else. We still have the pre-practice screenings like everybody has. We have to take temperatures and answer questions before we are able to step on the mat and practice. So that's no difference. The main thing with wrestling is there's a lot more face-to-face close contact than other sports. When you wrestle, you are, for a wrestling match is 6 minutes. It doesn't always last that long, but when we wrestle, you have to be up close and in person, and there's a lot of physical touching that goes into it that some sports don't have. You're constantly grabbing onto somebody's arm or leg or their head or something, so you have that added risk. We of course are taking every precaution. Consistently washing our hands. After you wrestle somebody, do what you can do to protect yourself. Wash your hands. Keep your hands out of your mouth, keep your hands off of your face, around your nose and eyes. The challenging thing for me though, that I've really had to face that's different, and every sport kind of experiences it, but this is the first time I've experienced it as a head coach. We have had a couple instances where we wrestle in a tournament or we wrestle in a match, and then a couple of days later we get a call from the athletic director that says, "Hey, I'm sorry to do this, but so-and-so tested positive and he wrestled, this kid on your team. I just wanted to make you aware." So we've had some instances where some kids have had to miss some time and, precautionary just to stay out, just to make sure that they were okay, to make sure that they didn't, get sick. But overall, the team's been really healthy. They've done a good job of protecting themselves and protecting their season, and doing everything that's asked of them and just being careful to the point that they don't affect themselves or others and have to miss extended periods of time.
And with this season, last season you had a lot of youth on the team, a lot of inexperience going around. But this year, with that previous year under their belt, how has this team been performing over this past month or so?
It's been an up and down season. Last year we had a couple seniors and a lot of youth that were stepping in, a lot of freshmen that were starting for us this year. We have a pretty good senior class, a decent senior class that has kind of come in and taken on that leadership role, and they've been wrestling very well for us. They've done a good job of leading, both at wrestling tournaments and in the room, just leading by example, showing the younger kids what it means to work, what it means to push themselves and better themselves in the wrestling room. There's the freshmen that are sophomores and some of the sophomores that are now juniors, they're continuing to get better. There's continued improvement. We're constantly getting better. We've had some injuries this year with some kids that have missed some time and kids that are continuing to miss some time right now that we're trying to hurdle. That's caused us, those injuries and stuff throughout the year has caused us to forfeit some weight classes and some team events. Which we've lost some matches that I felt like we had a chance at winning, just due to the forfeits that we've had because kids have been sick or out or whatever. So, there's that kind of makes the season, look a certain way. But overall, the team's progressing. We're getting better every day. We're working hard, and those younger kids are starting to come along. They're starting to do some good things. We're starting to see improvement on the mat, and they look like they're starting to come into themselves and feel a little more comfortable on the mat.
When you have a solid senior class and with all the youth that is on the team, how important it is to have those few seniors to keep that cycle of improvement going?
To me, especially in a sport like wrestling, where it's a lot of a wrestling move. There's so many small little details and things that you have to do correct. Having some seniors in the room that can kind of be other coaches, so. Me and my assistant coach, Coach Allen, we can't be everywhere helping every group all at the same time. But with those seniors, if they're wrestling with their partner and their partner does it wrong, we don't have to necessarily be there to say, "Hey, you did that wrong." They can tell, "Hey, you did that wrong. You need to put your arm here. You need to put your leg here." So having those seniors there to kind of be extra eyes, is very beneficial, that they can help teach those young guys and kind of lead them in the right direction on correcting their techniques.
Who are some of the younger wrestlers that have impressed you or have had a solid season so far?
One kid I want to mention, he's an 8th grader, but with the county policy and the state policy, since we don't have a middle school program, he's able to wrestle in the program. Kelly Doney, he wrestles 106 for us. He's done extremely well for us this year. Being an 8th grader, he's very small. He's outweighed, even though there are weight classes, he's in the smallest weight class and he's still outweighed by about 15 pounds. But he's wrestled before, so he has a little bit of experience coming into the sport. But he's grown a lot. He's shown a lot to us, both in the room and on the mat, that leads us to believe that he has a promising future for us. One kid this year, Cannon McFall, has stepped on the mat. No wrestling experience, but has shown again great improvement. Has picked up on a lot of things and shows that he has promise in the future. Another young man I want to mention is Rush Maples. He wrestles 160 in the 160-pound weight class. Again, a freshman, no wrestling experience, but he comes every day in the room. He asks questions. He pays attention when we're learning stuff, and he is a hard worker. Having youth that understand that nothing comes easy in wrestling and that you have to work for everything you get is big, because it's a sport that you can't just show up and do. You have to practice and you have to put your energy and effort into it. And seeing that youth that already understands that, it definitely shows promise for the younger generation of Stars Mill Wrestling.
And on the flip side, you have the senior class, including Leo Manine, Joey Skowski, and of course Ethan Kassler. So elaborate on those guys and how big they've been to this program.
I'll start with the first two you mentioned, Joey and Leo. They're an interesting group of young men. They've been wrestling partners since they've been on part of the team. Their weight classes have always been right there beside each other, so they're similar size. So they practice together with each other, and they have a different chemistry than a lot of people. They know each other as wrestlers. They know kind of what they want to do. So it's fun to really watch them wrestle each other, because they can kind of see what the other's trying to do before they even try it. So it's really fun to watch them go, because they work together, and neither of them make it easier on the other one. They've caused each other to work hard. They've together have gotten each other to a high level. They're now both 2-year state qualifiers. They've qualified for the state tournament as an individual 2 years in a row now. And both of them have had success winning matches at that state tournament. This year as seniors, we're definitely looking for them to be state qualifiers again, with the chance of both of them having a chance to place at the state tournament. So we're excited to see what they can accomplish this year as kind of their senior season. And then Ethan Kassler, if you know anything about Stars Mill Wrestling this year, you've probably heard that name. Ethan has been wrestling his whole life. He grew up in the sport. His brother was a state runner-up for us as a senior, so the family knows their way around a wrestling mat in the wrestling room. But Ethan's a great young man. He knows a lot about the sport. He's a hard worker. He actually practices twice a day. He practices with us, and then when our practice is over, his parents pay for him to go to a training facility and practice during the week to get that added work. And I think the results of his matches speak for the type of work ethic and the type of young man that he is. So far, he's undefeated on the season. He's won every tournament he's been at. He's had a couple really good matches against some really good competitors, but he's been able to come out on top, and we're hoping that continues on into the state tournament, and we're hoping that he has a chance to fight for a state championship this year.
There's a lot of variety on this roster from top to bottom, but how does that work with the team play? How does that work in trying to pick your spots with all those?
So wrestling season is kind of broken up into 2 seasons. We have a team aspect of it where you wrestle a full team. For instance, Stars Mill versus McIntosh, where our 14 weight classes wrestle their 14 weight classes. So for that, there's a little more strategy than just, okay, we're going to go wrestle. Just like with other sports, with football, with, every sport, there are, plays and stuff. We don't necessarily have plays, but what we do is we play around with our lineup. So in wrestling, you're allowed to wrestle the weight class that you weigh in at and then one above. So for instance, Ethan Kassler, we were just talking about, he is our 170-pound wrestler. He's allowed to wrestle in the 170-pound weight class as well as the 182-pound weight class. So if I have a JV kid that I feel like can go wrestle a good match at 170, I could put the JV kid at 170 and then bump Ethan up to 182 to try and win both matches, where I feel like if that's the better matchup. And we can do that. We can do that in multiple places. We can insert a younger wrestler and then bump people around to kind of play games to try and get better matchups to steal a match or to get a win that on paper we weren't necessarily supposed to. Now, where that comes into play is when you have forfeits. So like if we have an injury, I have two 195-pound wrestlers. There was a time that our 220 was out of town over Christmas break and we were wrestling. I was able to take one of those 95-pound wrestlers and bump them up to the 220-pound weight class. That way we weren't having to forfeit that weight and give up free points to the other team. So that's kind of the games and the strategy that we're able to play in the team aspect of it. There's not as much necessarily team strategy when it comes to the individual season. The individual season, it's more about working with that individual wrestler and honing their skills to what they're able to do to make them, as an individual, the best single wrestler they can be. There may still be, some tournaments may still have a team score based off of how your individuals do. You get a team score, but once we get to the individual portion, after the team portion's over, it's all about taking our individual wrestler, whoever our varsity 106, our varsity 113, all the way up to heavyweight, and say, okay, what can this person do to be the best wrestler they can be so that they can reach their goal at the end of the season, whether their goal is to win area, or their goal is to be a state qualifier, or their goal is to win a couple matches at state, or even place or have a chance to win the state tournament. It's the strategy then becomes more of an individualized focus on, okay, what moves can you do well? What can we add to your move selection so that you can be the best wrestler that you can be?
All that considered, how are things looking going into the area duels this Saturday and for the rest of the team season and going into traditionals?
Area duels are going to be a challenge for us this year. As you probably know, our area has been redone this year. We gained two very good wrestling teams in Harris County and Northgate. Both of them have very good wrestling programs. So in past years, it's always been kind of us and Whitewater kind of duking it out for 1 and 2. And this year, with the addition of Northside Columbus and Northgate, or not Northside Columbus, Harris County and Northgate, both of those teams are year in, year out competitive teams. I haven't seen a whole lot of Northside Columbus, so I'm not sure what they have in years past. They usually have some pretty good wrestlers, so I'll be anxious to see. So really, it's going to come down. This weekend we have our area dual tournament as a team. It's going to come down to how well we wrestle, and when we wrestle in the dual side of it, at some point in time you may come up across a guy that's better than you, but it's about limiting how many points they get. You get more points for a pin than you do just beating them by points. If you get beat by points, you get 3 points. If you get beat by a pin, the other team gets 6 points. So, it's going to be about limiting the number of points. When we do come across somebody that's better than us, limiting them to how many, how we lose, and then when we are the better wrestler, it's going to be about maximizing our chances. So when we have a guy like let's say Ethan, when we wrestle and Ethan steps on the mat, we're not just expecting him to win by points, we're expecting him to pin. And if our good guys can get those pins for us when we're supposed to, and our guys that may come across somebody that might be a little better than them are able to fight for 6 minutes and just get beat by a couple of points, we feel like we have a chance to win a couple matches and place in the top 4 and move on to the next round. If we can't minimize the damage when we wrestle, then we may not finish in the top 4 and move on to the next round. So it's going to be a challenging weekend for us. Hoping that everybody gets healthy and everybody gets back in time for this weekend, and that'll also play a big part in our success.
It's going to be a thriller this weekend. Thank you for your time, Coach.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. If you want to see Starsville High School Wrestling compete in the area duels this weekend, head to Whitewater High School on Saturday, January 16th. Other than that, for myself, Coach Garner, and Charlie Gomes behind the camera, I'm Daniel Stackhouse. Thank you for watching. Go Panthers!